Welcome, everyone. Ready to dive into the Mothman? You probably know the basics, but the stuff you sent us, wow, it's seriously in-depth. We're going to go beyond just the sightings, really get into what keeps this legend going. By the time we're done, you'll have a whole new take on why Mothman still grabs our attention after all this time.
It's wild, right? Mothman isn't just some made-up creature. It's woven into a real place, a real community. Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
That's where it all starts, doesn't it? This quiet town suddenly finds itself famous back in November '66. What kicks things off?
The first sighting, November 12th, gravediggers near Clendenin, they see this massive, man-like figure just like flying low over the trees. A few days later, November 15th, bam, the encounter that makes Mothman a legend.
The one with the two couples near that abandoned TNT area, right? Going through the sources you sent, chills, man, serious chills.
Yeah, it's creepy. They describe this huge gray thing, 10-foot wingspan, glowing red eyes, the whole deal. But the detail that sticks with you, it chases their car, like super fast.
Over 100 miles per hour, some say. Makes you wonder about those theories, like could a chemical leak really do that? I mean, wouldn't it cause sickness, mutations, not some giant flying thing?
Yeah.
Any science behind that mutation idea?
Good point. And that's the thing with Mothman. It's tough to pin down. The TNT area, sure, lots of history there, munitions and all. But linking those leaks to creating a creature like this, no real proof.
So we've got this abandoned spot, creepy vibes, multiple sightings of this winged creature, and then that car chase detail ups the fear factor big time. What happens next?
Well, the TNT area, it almost becomes a character in the story. Bunkers, tunnels, that feeling of secrets and decay. Perfect setting for a story like this, and it fuels all these theories. What could be going on there? Portals to other dimensions, some even said.
The Mothman being some interdimensional being, it's intriguing. Like other realities existing alongside ours, maybe the TNT area with all its weird energy acting like a door between them. But even beyond just the Mothman sightings, locals reported other strange stuff around then, right?
Oh yeah, not just Mothman. Weird noises, lights no one could explain, that feeling of being watched, like eyes on you. This unease settles over Point Pleasant, like something's really wrong.
The whole town, infected with dread. And then, just over a year later, everything changes.
December 15th, 1967, Silver Bridge collapses. 46 people gone, it was national news, tragic. But in Point Pleasant, it meant even more.
Because of the timing, right?
Yeah.
Just a year after those first Mothman sightings.
Exactly, and rumors were flying. Mothman seen near the bridge before it collapsed. People connected the two, couldn't help it.
Seeing the Mothman sighting spike right after the bridge collapse can't be just coincidence. Shows how people deal with trauma, trying to find meaning, even in tragedy. That need to explain the unexplainable, it fuels myths, legends, all of it.
Absolutely. Was it a warning? Did it cause the collapse? Was it drawn to the tragedy? These questions, they consumed the community, made Mothman a part of everything.
Like the bridge collapse focused all that fear, all that uncertainty that had been building. Mothman, it became a symbol of this shared trauma. And the mystery just deepens. This is where the theories really get going, I bet.
You got it. And they go from totally normal to, well, pretty out there.
So on one side, you got folks saying it was a sandhill crane. I get it. Big bird, dark, could be scary. But does that really explain it?
The sandhill crane, yeah, it's large, some reddish markings around the eyes. But people who know these birds, they'll tell you they're not nocturnal and they don't go chasing cars like that.
The interdimensional being, it's cool, but a little too much, even for me. Any theory that stands out to you?
Not about finding the right one, I think. What's interesting is how each theory shows us trying to understand the unknown. Sandhill crane, that's wanting a rational explanation. Supernatural stuff, tapping into our fears, what we can't explain. Aliens, well, UFOs in the area makes you wonder what's out there. And then mass hysteria, the power of suggestion, collective fear, creating its own reality.
It's weird. Even with all these explanations, Mothman doesn't fit neatly anywhere. So, biological, supernatural, alien state brain. The Fiven Soperman conspiracy, you're right. Are we going full X-Files here?
Well, the TNT area being a former military site, it adds fuel to that fire. The theory goes, Mothman was some experiment gone wrong, secret government stuff.
So not a natural creature, not an alien, but our own government made a monster.
Plays into those fears, what happens behind closed doors.
Exactly. Distrust of authority, that fear we're not getting the whole truth. You found some interesting stuff on Mothman and Native American folklore in the area. Similar stories, winged creatures, way before 1966. Makes you think, how do cultures interpret the unknown, using what they already believe?
Great point. The Mothman legend, it didn't come from nowhere. It's tied to this region, drawing on old beliefs, fears, all that. Makes you wonder how much of what we see is shaped by what we already believe. But here's where it gets really interesting. Mothman isn't just a local thing. Reports all over the world, right? You got it. Chicago Mothman sightings near O'Hare, the Owlman of Cornwall in England, all these winged creatures popping up in different cultures.
So one creature, some globe-trotting cryptid, or separate but similar things, coming from different cultural anxieties. It's pretty amazing these stories stick around, even with the world so connected now.
Shows how powerful these images, these stories are. They tap into something universal about being human. We're drawn to the mysterious, the stuff we can't explain. And in a world that feels predictable, controlled, Mothman gives us a glimpse of something wild, unknown.
I think you nailed it there. What blows my mind is how Mothman has, adapted to the internet age.
Oh, totally. Mothman's thriving online, YouTube videos, podcasts like ours, and social media, forget about it.
Reddit, it's a Mothman haven. TikTok, full of supposed sightings, creepy recreations, the works. It's crazy how this legend has found new life online. Speaking of hoaxes, ever seen anything that made you think, wait, is that Mothman?
It's easy to fake stuff now, drones, CGI, all that, but even the fakes, they add to the legend in a way. Keep people talking, keep the mystery going.
That back and forth, skepticism versus belief, what we can explain, what we can't. Mothman lives in that space, that gray area. Our rational minds clash with, I don't know, that wanting to believe in something bigger. But why are we still so into this creature? After all this time, what is it about Mothman that keeps us hooked?
The million-dollar question, right. Why does Mothman still matter, even in a world flooded with info, distractions? To get that, we need to go deeper, look at the psychology, the culture behind the legend.
So we're going beyond the events, the theories, getting to the deeper meaning of Mothman. Now things are getting interesting. We're back, ready to dig even deeper into this whole Mothman thing. You were saying to really understand it, we got to go beyond the facts, the theories.
Exactly. We have to think about the psychology, the culture, the things that make this legend stick around.
So it's not just what Mothman is, but what it represents. All right.
Yeah, think about when the sighting started. The 60s, crazy time. Cold War, people scared of nuclear war, old ways of thinking being challenged,
So Mothman pops up in all that anxiety, uncertainty, like it's a symbol of all those fears.
You could definitely see it that way. Mothman becomes this symbol of the unknown, things we can't control. And when people are feeling powerless, well, a creature like that, it grabs their attention.
It's weird how these urban legends, they often reflect the anxieties of the time. You mentioned the Silver Bridge collapse, the psychological impact of that. What do you mean?
Oh, the Silver Bridge collapse. That's huge for understanding why Mothman is still a thing. It wasn't just a bridge falling. It was a symbol, stability, connection. And when it went, it left this emptiness. People needed to make sense of it. And Mothman, as this warning sign, it became a powerful symbol in all that grief.
Like it gave people a way to deal with the trauma, to find meaning when it felt meaningless. But there's also that community identity thing with Mothman, isn't there? Point Pleasant, they've really embraced it.
Absolutely. Point Pleasant, they took Mothman and made it their own. Something to be proud of. Mothman Festival, the museum, that giant statue.
They took back the story. Mothman went from this scary thing to part of their town, brings in tourists, Makes me wonder about people who say they see Mothman today. What's their deal? Fame? Attention? Or do they really think they saw something real?
Hard to say what's going on in each person's head. But there's that human thing, wanting to experience something beyond the normal. The world can feel so boring sometimes. Mothman, it's like a peek into the unknown, the idea that maybe there are still mysteries out there.
And with social media, it's easy to share those experiences, real or not. You said Mothman thrives in that space between skepticism and belief. What did you mean by that?
It's like Mothman exists where there's not much proof, but lots of room for interpretation. Makes us think about what we know, how our beliefs shape what we see.
So it's a balancing act. Thinking critically but being open-minded. Looking for explanations, but accepting that some things, maybe we just don't get them. Is it bad to just dismiss these kinds of stories completely?
I think it's always risky to dismiss anything too quickly, especially when it comes to human experience. These stories, even if you don't believe them, they tell us about our anxieties, our hopes, our fears. They remind us that the world is complex, mysterious. There's a lot we still don't understand.
I've always thought it's interesting, these urban legends, like Mothman, they're like modern mythology. Explanations for the unexplainable, warnings, a shared experience.
That's a great way to put it. And Mothman, with the disaster, the transformation, the unknown, it all fits that archetype.
We've talked about Mothman as fear, as mystery, as part of Point Pleasant's identity. But what if it's something even bigger? Something about our connection to nature, to what we don't know, to the parts of ourselves we don't understand.
That's a really cool idea, and I think it gets to why Mothman still matters to people. It makes us consider that maybe, just maybe, there are things happening in the universe that we haven't even begun to grasp.
As we've been talking, it's made me think about how much we love stories. We need them to understand the world, to connect, to ask those big questions. Who are we? What's our place in all of this?
True. And Mothman, with the mystery, the fear, the unknown, it's a powerful story. Told and retold, changed and reinterpreted for over 50 years. And every time, it means something new, reflecting what people are worried about, what they want.
Like Mothman's this blank canvas, and we put our fears, hopes, beliefs onto it. That's part of what makes it so interesting. It's not just a thing, it's a mirror, changing, showing us ourselves. What about you? After all this, what sticks with you about Mothman? Any theory that jumps out, or have this sparked new questions for you?
Maybe you're into the supernatural Mothman, a sign of change, a protector of secrets. Or maybe you're more scientific, thinking it's all misidentification, mass hysteria.
Or maybe you're in the middle, open to possibilities, but still looking for that one clue to solve it all. Whatever you think, I hope this has given you a new appreciation for the Mothman legend.
It keeps fascinating us, scaring us, inspiring us. Reminds us, even in a world that feels knowable, controlled, there are still mysteries out there, in the shadows, waiting.
We've covered a lot, the sightings in Point Pleasant, the cultural stuff, the psychology of it all. But the biggest takeaway for me, maybe the truth about Mothman isn't as important as the questions it makes us ask.
It's those questions, the not knowing for sure, the room for interpretation that keeps it alive, makes it so interesting.
So as we wrap this up, think about this. Maybe the real mystery isn't what Mothman is, but what it means to you.
Is it something to be afraid of? A symbol of hope? A reminder that there's still magic, mystery in the world? That's for you to decide.
Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and hey, maybe you'll be the one to figure out the Mothman enigma. And remember, keep watching the skies.
It makes us think, maybe there are forces out there, things in the universe that we just don't get yet.
You know, talking about all this, it makes me think about how much we need stories, us humans. We need them to make sense of things, to connect with each other, to grapple with those big questions. Who are we? Why are we here? All that.
It's so true. And the Mothman, with all the mystery, the fear, the draw of the unknown, it's a powerful story, right? It's been told and retold, changed, reinterpreted for what, over 50 years? And each time, it takes on new meaning, reflecting the anxieties and aspirations of the people who tell it.
It's almost like Mothman's this blank canvas,
Yeah.
and we project our own fears, hopes, and beliefs onto it. And that's what makes it so fascinating. It's not static. It's like constantly evolving, a reflection of us. What about you? After this deep dive, what resonates with you the most about Mothman? Did any particular theory grab you, or has this sparked a whole new set of questions for you?
Maybe you're drawn to the idea of Mothman as a supernatural being, a harbinger of change, a guardian of the unknown. Or perhaps you lean toward a more scientific explanation, seeing the legend as a product of misidentification and mass hysteria.
Or maybe you're somewhere in between, open to the possibilities, but still searching for that elusive piece of evidence that could finally unravel the mystery. Whatever your perspective, we hope this deep dive has given you a deeper appreciation for the enduring power of the Mothman legend.
It's a story that continues to fascinate, frighten, and inspire, reminding us that even in a world that often feels increasingly knowable and controlled, there are still mysteries out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting to be discovered.
We've explored a lot of ground in this deep dive, from the historical accounts of sightings in Point Pleasant to the wider cultural and psychological implications of the Mothman phenomenon. But I think what stands out most to me is the realization that the truth about the Mothman may not be as important as the questions it raises.
It's the questions, the ambiguity, the space for interpretation that keeps this legend alive, makes it so compelling.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with this thought. Maybe the real mystery isn't about what the Mothman is, but about what it represents to each of us.
Is it a creature to be feared? A symbol of hope? A reminder that there's still magic and mystery in the world? That's for you to decide.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and who knows, maybe you'll be the one to finally shed light on the enigma of the Mothman. And as always, keep watching the skies.